729 Grant Barclay. Moderator, some may say that we shouldn't keep meeting like this, but I've enjoyed talking with you face to face, even at a distance. And I have to say, my admiration for your role as moderator is increased when I am in the hall here and see just what you have to juggle in terms of all the technology and the voices in your ear and in your head as well. And so, as we hopefully come to the end of our business, or at least draw nearer to it, I know that you have on a number of occasions thanked all those who have worked behind the scenes to enable all this. I'd want to say on behalf of all of us, thank you to you for your quiet confidence and your calm assurance, which has served this Assembly and the Church so well. However, we normally make decisions together, and disparate deciding doesn't sit with our long-standing processes. I want to say, though, that it's the bread and butter of lawyers to solve problems and to develop flexible solutions to tricky situations. That's what the Principal and Deputy Clerk, along with the law officers and others, did in developing protocols presented to the Commission of Assembly when you and I and some others met here in July. The past 3 months or so since that commission have allowed some limited insight into the operation of the protocols which were then passed and which have allowed vacancy procedures to continue and meetings of presbyteries and kirk sessions to take place remotely. These appear to have operated in a satisfactory way, and so the committee proposes that these protocols shall be continued until the next General Assembly. We are aware of some benefits which might flow from extending this principle of taking decisions where not all those eligible are gathered together in one space. And the further protocols presented in Appendices E and F, and also G in the supplementary report, permit decisions to be taken in remote ways on specific issues, namely considering a basis of adjustment, agreeing unitary constitutions, and selling church buildings. Some of these practical outworkings mean the processes differ from those normally used and which are detailed in past acts of the Assembly. This is our legal contribution to a flexible and fit-for-purpose response which enables us to act in principled ways in a fast-changing world. These protocols are interim measures that are intended to allow decisions to be made in current circumstances. They are exceptional and do not attempt permanently to alter the way decisions are made. The Legal Questions Committee, and particularly the staff in the office of the Principal Clerk, have worked swiftly to produce these protocols as a response to restrictions placed on, among other things, our decision-making. It is, though, only right that the Assembly should take the final decision. These various protocols are then presented so that this Assembly may take a view whether, on balance, the benefit of being able to proceed in this way outweighs the change which is necessary to some of our processes. Sections 9 and 10 of the Deliverance and Sections 2 and 3 of the Supplementary Report's Deliverance provide a means for the Assembly to consider these matters. I could say a little more about the protocol for the sale of buildings. Commissioners have had little time to consider this. It came out only midweek, just a few days before this Assembly starts. That gives you an idea, Moderator, of the speed at which things are changing. I'm happy, though, given the time of the evening, not to speak to this now, but I shall do so if asked. Moderator, I do hope that the Assembly sees in this approach an example both of holding our nerve, as you encouraged us in our opening worship this morning, by adhering to principled processes which we rightly hold dear, and also of carrying on, serving obediently, amending the ways we work to accommodate current challenges in order that we may do well all that we are called to do in the cause of Christ. I present the supplementary report and ask the Principal Clerk to move sections 9 and 10 of the Deliverance in the report, as well as sections 1 to 3 in the supplementary report.
I so move.
Seconded.
Thank you, Convener. So for clarity, we dealt with a good chunk of this last night, and we are at number 9 in the deliverance. Number 9. I have some notices to speak coming up, but not on 9. So if there is no discussion on 9, I will ask that the vote be opened so that we can vote on 9. It's now opened. You may vote on section 9 of the deliverance. While you're doing that, I might point out that there's a request to speak on, I think, number 6, but 6 was dealt with last night. Number 9 is carried. We move to number 10, request to speak from Brian Kerr. Brian.
Moderator, Kerr 199. Moderator, I just want to comment briefly on the congregational meetings and the protocols that are there, and I really genuinely appreciate the work that Legal Questions have done, having been involved in the vacancy protocol with them. They have been incredible at getting things through. But we keep thinking that we are coming out of this pandemic. We've heard language today, we are emerging from it. I've not seen that memo, and we don't know how long this is going to last. And equally, we might find that some of the processes that we put in place now actually we quite like, and we might want to find ways to continue them. So all I'm asking is that someone keeps in mind the fact that we need to look at these long-term, some of these processes, to allow that franchise that we have in voting to sometimes be extended to those who can't attend, to those who perhaps now watch online and are part of our congregation and after we return to normal may not have a vote in their next minister, but also, and particularly probably on the buildings, sale of buildings issue. For the first time ever, we are now asking congregation members who perhaps have had nothing to do with the church for long and weary to suddenly fill in a ballot that we hand deliver asking whether they want us to sell a church building. That could very much see the church being held to hostage, and we don't want to see democracy get in the way of a good process. But equally, we need to think about who it is that ought to vote in these things. We know the problem with postal ballots. It's been well documented, apparently. But in our church, we want to make sure that when we send out ballots, they don't stymie charity trustees in being able to discharge their duties. So please, just a plea, can someone please keep an eye on this going forward to make sure the right people are deciding, and that when we get back to normal, whenever that is, more people can have a say in how we run the church.
Thank you, Brian. Convener, do you want to respond?
Moderator, I would simply wish to say that it comes with the title of the committee that the legal questions folks would be quite happy to endeavour to develop answers to any questions which might be raised on these or other matters in the future, certainly.
Thank you, Convener. I have Willie Strachan also on 10.1, which is where we are right now. Willie, name and number, please.
Willie Strachan, 508. Moderator, I appreciate that these are legal matters and they need to be dealt with in legal terms. My question, I suppose, very simply is it possible to provide a simplified form of these appendices about what the processes will now be, so that we can use these and get them out to the ordinary folk in our kirk sessions and our congregations so that they understand them a bit better as we try to move forward. I welcome what we have in front of us, but really the language is sometimes really difficult for ordinary folk like me to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. Grant?
Moderator, the language is quite often quite hard for me to understand too. I have every sympathy with you, and I can say that we have produced guidance, and so you would be able to have a look at that, which I hope is written in the kind of less legal language which ordinary folk could understand. And I would just like to say as well that the staff, I don't want this to open the floodgates, but the staff would be very glad to be of any assistance they can. You'll understand they are under a deal of pressure of work at the moment, but if you do have questions, I think I would go to your Presbytery Clerk first of all, but others stand ready to help in what we recognise is, for all of us, a really difficult and challenging time.
Thank you, Convener. I have nothing else on 10.1, so I propose that the voting is opened on section 10.1. Ten-1 is carried. We move to 10.2. The vote is open. Ten-2 is carried. 10.3, I have a request to speak in the name David Lang. David. Unmute, please, David.
We are. David Lang, 561. There's nothing here about annual stated meeting, and I just wonder if consideration has been given to that.
Thank you, David. I'll give the convener an opportunity to rifle through his papers and make a response.
Well, in actual fact, in rifling through my papers, I find that I can't find the answer that I had so carefully prepared before. I have got half an answer, certainly, but I have got more confidence that the Principal Clerk knows the full answer. I wonder, therefore, if we might defer to him.
Do you know what I was going to offer the convener a lift back to his car on such a wet night, but no, not allowed, that's right. I'll hide behind that, thank you. The first thing I'd suggest to Mr. Ling is that the Oscar website itself has a section on COVID and an understanding that these are difficult times and that certain normal practices in charities simply cannot be organised in the same way. And so the annual general meeting of a charity, the stated annual meeting in our case, they understand that that might not happen. What we've been suggesting to people is that they try and fulfil at least the spirit of that, where the trustees, usually the KIP session nowadays, attest the accounts, obviously, and so on. But that they give the congregation the sight of them, and they give the congregation the chance to a methodology by which they can ask questions about the accounts. And in that way, fulfil at least the spirit of what the stated annual meeting is meant to achieve. We are, of course, past the date for the submission of congregational accounts at the end of September now. So that process necessarily has had to crack on and go ahead.
Thank you, Clerk. So that was in relation to 10.3. I have nothing else on 10.3, and so I'll ask that the vote be opened. It is now open. Please vote. (10.3) carries. Now we have supplementary, but I will ask that the deliverance as a whole is taken on the main report. So the deliverance as a whole, or not? No. Continue. I think the vote is open. I think people are voting. So
this is the section of deliverance on the main report, and then we'll come to the supplementary report as a whole.
So the main report, deliverance as a whole, is carried. Thank you. We continue straight on to the substance of the supplementary report. Convener, are you going to add anything?
No, I hope that covered everything sufficiently, Moderator. Clearly, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I've got no notice of anyone wanting to speak, and so we will move to the deliverance. First of all, one which has received the report, the supplementary report, that is. The voting is open. Number 1 carries of the supplementary report. We move to number 2. Again, no request to speak. The vote is open. It is carried. I move to number 3. I have a request to speak from Donald McEwen on number 3 of the supplementary report. We've got Graham Astles there. I think, Graham, hold for a moment. Donald McEwen on number 3. Donald, you are there. Name and number, please, when you're unmuted.
Yeah, McEwen 737. I just got that request to speak in early because I see I'm cited, the Theological Forum is cited in the new section on 3, and I wanted to be sure I was queued up to respond to that.
Fine, thank you. We are on 3 now. We're going to pass 3, so vote please now on 3. Voting is open. It is carried. Thank you. So we come to the new section in the name of Graham Astles. Graham, name and number, please, when you're ready.
Thank you, Moderator. Graham Astles, number 070. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Really, just in relation to the issue I raised with the Faith Nurture Forum, which was helpfully answered by the clerk and by the convener and by Mr. Matheson. I just feel it's important that we codify into the minutes something that says this is going to happen. It's great to have bits and pieces of this is going on, but it's nice to have something solid there. And I figured that it would be important that the whole issue of call is explored, which is why I looked at in citing the Theological Forum as part of that discussion. It's an important discussion to have, as well as legal questions, to actually come up with something that enables presbyteries to move forward on something like a hub or something similar to that, so that we can move forward on that, because at the moment there's a degree of confusion there. Moderator, I will be brief because I know we're way behind time, so I think I should probably leave it there.
Thank you, Graham. Is there a seconder? Or within the hall? Graham, I do not have a seconder for what you're proposing.
Amanda Macquarie agreed to second it for me.
Okay, in that case I need to hear from Amanda, or I need to be sure that she's pressing her button. It remains unseconded here. It's now seconded. Thank you. Donald, is this the point at which you would like to speak? If so, name and number, please.
Moderator, it is. Donald McEwen, 737. I've got it on my phone. As far as I can see, this new section is asking the Theological Forum, along with others, to consider the nature of call. This is a huge subject. Vocation is one, it's a very interesting theological topic, one in which the Church of Scotland draws heavily on Calvin and on other authorities. I'm not convinced that this is the right time for what could still be a fascinating, but nevertheless quite lengthy exploration of what it is to be called to ministry and to different forms of ministry at this time. I'm not sure that the wording quite gets what Mr. Astles is after. I think he's interested in a much narrower exploration of could a number of people be called to serve in a large parish? And is that truly a theological question or a practical one? So it's for the Assembly to decide, but I think there are question marks at the very least raised by this proposed new section.
Thank you, Donald. I've no other notices of people wanting to speak. Graham, you have the right to make a brief response to what you've heard.
Thank you, Moderator. I think Donald McEwen's right on the money there, that it is quite a big subject, and I wasn't proposing that we look to the whole issue of coal in the wider context, but really in terms of, can multiple ministers validly be called from a theological, not just a legal perspective, to multiple charges, because this is an issue that has been holding up some of the moves forward in terms of hubbing or parish grouping that we've had for near part of a decade now, and then we do need some clarity on whether that's possible and whether it can go forward. It would be disappointing to find that, we have all these plans to do various things, but we're held up simply by legislation. But that legislation does need to be explored, not just from a legal perspective, but I think also on that narrow issue from a theological perspective too.
Thank you, Graham. Convener.
Thank you, Moderator. I don't want to be legalistic about this at all, but clearly words do matter. And the terms of this motion, if it were passed, would require the Legal Questions Committee, certainly along with others, to explore the nature of call. It's not a technical legal phrase, but quite simply, that's not our pidgin. And there are people better placed in the church to deal with that question. Dr. McEwen and the Theological Forum would be one of them. It does seem to me that this is really not the task of the Legal Questions Committee at all. And it is for that reason, which I hope will persuade the members of the Assembly, that I am resisting this.
Thank you, Convener. And so we will open the vote on what Mr. Astos has proposed as a new section. Voting is open. Going to close the vote at this stage. They've voted for 82 and against 333, and so it falls. Deliverance as a whole of the supplementary report. Just give us 1 second. We need to move systems again. Votes now before you on the deliverance as a whole of the supplementary report. I'm happy to declare that it carries. Thank you. Convener, thank you for all of the work represented here and for your patience in being with us from beginning to end of our deliberations. And so to you and your team, thank you very much.